Welcome to The Art of Being Unstoppable, the podcast where we will go beyond the ordinary and embrace the extraordinary. Be part of down-to-earth, no BS conversations where we will explore hot topics on love and money, relationships and business, beauty, and who we get to be with all that shit in between. With our insights and your actions, let's be unstoppable together. Let's go.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Art of Being Unstoppable. And today we're really excited because we have a very special guest. If you are local to Windsor, Essex County, you may have heard this voice on the AM 800 radio show, Dan McDonald, who's one of our favorites. We reached out to him. We said, Dan, we need to have you on. So Dan, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Very, very happy to be here. I'm so pumped about this today.
So for those of you that are watching, you might not realize this, but I'm literally sitting on Vicky's lap right now. We had so many tech breakdowns with the cameras. So we're like, you know what? Let's roll this and let's just do it. Let's just do it.
That's right.
So we're having hot flashes. So we're going to make this one really great and fun. And so Vicky, you want to start?
Well, I mean, you know, Dan, I'm finally very happy to meet you. We've been, trying to connect, but it's very nice to meet you in person. And I'm really happy that you're here. And you're here. We're doing a very special episode on Pride Month. I know that June marks the beginning of the Pride season in Ontario and in Canada. So it's very important to you as well as it is to us. So I would just wanted to bring you on and have you here and share with our listeners and with us your journey and how it all how you came out, which is one of the questions that I know we started this podcast another time and we had to stop and start. But that was my favorite thing to know, because as a mom, my youngest son came out I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago. And, as a parent, I know how I felt, but how did you come to do that? And how did you come out when you first shared it with your family?
That's an interesting question because oddly enough, I never came out to my parents. I knew, when you start to know, people always ask, when did you know? And a lot of people will roll their eyes at that question. It's like, well, when did you know you were straight? But it's kind of like that. It's like you kind of always knew, even though you don't have the language for it, there's something there, and then when you start hearing about it, you start to realize, OMG, I think I'm that. And for me, it was being gay. I was very, very closeted. I was kind of resigned to the fact that maybe I'll just have girlfriends and eventually get married to a woman and I'll have a family and that'll be that. And I'll never really be my true self and I can suppress it. So when I was about 18, I realized that's probably not going to happen. So I gotta live my life here. So, I graduated high school. I found some friends who were very, very accepting. It was a lot of my friends from high school. We somehow all were LGBT, even though we weren't out to each other. So whatever cosmic force brought us together. But I came out to my friends and I was going to gay clubs and I had boyfriends and every one of my friends was saying, well, Dan, you have to tell your parents. You have to. And I thought, I really don't want to. I don't feel comfortable making a big thing of it and saying Mom, Dad, sit down. I have something to tell you. I would scare the living crap out of them if I did that. And I thought I'd be making a bigger deal than it was. So I said, maybe I'm in denial and maybe I'm afraid, but my parents and I, we just don't have that kind of relationship where it's like, I have something to tell you. So I made a little vow to myself saying, I'm not going to come out, but I'm not going to lie. So if I get asked, I'm going to answer truthfully and I'm just going to go on living. So one night I was heading out, still living at home, heading out to a gay bar with some friends that were going to pick me up. And my mom said, where are you going? And I said, well, I'm going to the Happy Tap, which was a notorious Windsor gay bar back in the 90s. And she kind of paused and went, is that a gay bar? And I said, oh boy, here's the whole don't lie thing. Yep, it is. And she paused and went, I always knew about you. And she was smiling. And I went, okay, that's great. My friends are here. I have to go now. And out the door I went to go with my friends. I'm like, oh my God, I think I just kind of came out to my mom. And is that it? What's going to happen? And that was kind of it. We never brought it up again. If I was dating somebody, I would bring them to functions and no one said a word. And they're obviously we're open now. I've been living with someone for 25 years. I hope they know, but they're very supportive. They're very they're very, very supportive parents, very understanding, very pro LGBT, LGBT. But I've never actually sat down and said the words like, Mom, Dad, I'm gay.
Wow. And I think so many people are so afraid of that, but I love your story of just saying like, okay, this is who I am. If you want to ask questions, that's fine, but this is me. There are a lot of people, because I see it on social media all the time. Somebody posts about gay pride and there's the naysayers that say, why do we need a month for gay pride? And there's so much misinformation and so much negativity around this. From your point of view, why is it important? Because I think people just don't understand. If it's like, it's not my problem, it's not my thing to solve, like women's rights, gay rights, Black Lives Matter, they're like, it's not my fight. Like, I don't care. Why do we need a month to celebrate? So I want to hear from your point of view, why is it important? And what do people need to know?
I think in truth, I mean, the whole "it's not my fight" thing, I mean, that's fine. Like if pride means nothing to you, good news. You can go on and carry on your life and it's not going to affect you in the slightest. So that's great. But for those of us who do celebrate pride and recognize pride, it's important on so many different levels. I mean, on the base level, the very base level, there is the party aspect of it. It's connecting with all your friends and family and community and people you hadn't seen. And there's that party side of it, but there's also the very, very political side of it too, of visibility. And visibility is the most important thing, I think, in all of this. That's the part of my job on the radio that I think is the most important, not even the topics, just the fact that I'm an out gay man on the radio talking about my partner the same way that my other co-hosts talk about their partners and their straight relationships. I don't ram it down anyone's throat, but I'll mention the same way Mike might say, oh, Kelly and I picked out a new barbecue. I would say Wayne and I went and picked out a new barbecue, or Wayne and I went to the fireworks last night. And there it is. And I think that visibility is important, that pride flag and that celebration is important, because I'm going to steal this. I saw a meme the other day and it said, why is LGBT pride important? Show me the countries where it's illegal to be straight. There aren't any. There are still for LGBT people. Sometimes, you're put to death, you're jailed, you're ostracized, you're cut off. And that's also happening right here. We're making so much progress. We made so much progress here in Canada, but there are still people who are in their teens who are exactly where I was when I was 11, 12, and 13. They're afraid to tell their parents. Even, this is how deep the fear goes, even when mom and dad or grandma, grandpa, whoever the family is and the caregivers are, even if they are put out every sign that they are supportive and understanding, there is still a fear, and I don't know where that comes from, but there is still a fear that if I tell them this, they are not going to love me. They're going to kick me out. They're going to throw me out. They're going to think less of me. I'm going to be a disappointment to them. So, I mean, 35 years since I've come out, there are kids, adults, who are still in the closet for all the same reasons that I was. Or I have friends who are out in the community and they're full-grown adults living on their own, and they still are not out to their parents, or they still are not out to work, and they still put up with homophobic comments at work. And that's the reason we have pride, and they are too afraid to say something. I'm not thinking less of them for not saying anything and standing up. You got to protect yourself. But the fact that is still there, there's still that fear there that I will somehow be in danger for my job, my family, my church, my work, my social circle, my siblings, if I tell them I'm gay or bi or trans or whatever it may be on that rainbow spectrum. That's why pride is important, that observation, that visibility, that acknowledgement. And it's hard to put into words for people who've never needed that before, people who have never been afraid to tell their loved ones and their closest ones who they really are. I always say, being yourself is the one thing in life that we've got. Never mind money, never mind opportunity, never mind your geographical location. You have yourself. You're born with that. That's the one thing you're guaranteed. That should be the easiest, most authentic thing to be. And it's probably one of the most difficult things to be for so many people. They take their own lives because they can't be themselves. They lie to their friends and family and coworkers and build a whole fake structure. They marry people who they really know they're never going to be truly happy with, but they do it because they want to protect themselves. So as long as that fear is still out there, that's the reason we need pride. And that's why it's so important, at least from my perspective and from what I've seen.
Yeah, I remember I had a client who, for me, it seemed obvious that he was gay, but he was married. He had teenage kids. And I just like heard this whisper. And I said, what are you pretending? Like, what? And he was just like, I'm pretending that I'm not gay when I am, and that I want to be with my wife when I don't. And like all of this stuff came out. And I was like, what are you going to do about that? He's like, I've been sitting on this question for 30 something years, you know, however he was. And even then it was like, and I was just like, what? Like, I was shocked when I found out that he was married, but now I see him online with his partner. He's happy. He's vibrant. The kids accept him. His wife accepts him. And I don't know how that conversation played out, but I thought, wow, how sad that must feel, that you need to live a life of a lie because you're too afraid of speaking the truth.
Yeah. And now, you know, once you're married and when you have kids too, if you have kids, I mean, that's a whole other conversation now, because now it feels like a deception to other people too, right? You're not just revealing something, you're changing somebody's entire perception and family structure. Like it's in a way, I don't want to equate it to this, but there probably is a bit of a sense of mourning amongst some of the family members saying, you know, we lost dad as we thought of him. You didn't lose dad. Now you just really know who dad is. But there probably is that sense, like the wife loses her husband or vice versa. And it's like a divorce, but it's not a divorce because nobody cheated. Nobody wronged each other. Just somebody revealed themselves who they really are. And it's not compatible the way it was presented to be compatible. So it's such a tricky thing, and my hat is so off. And, you know, all I know is I was there for a brief minute thinking, I'll just marry a woman and I'll have that life and I'll be the dad and that'll be that. And that it wouldn't have been good. It wouldn't have worked out. But people get through it, and it takes so much strength. Like, you know, Vicky, the fact that your son came out to you is amazing. You know, when your kids come out to you, that takes so much bravery, and it really does speak volumes, I think, to the relationship you must have.
Absolutely. And, you know, he had a girlfriend for quite a long time. And I think that he wanted to pretend because he knew, I'm sure he knew from a very young age. I can't remember what exact age, so I don't want to misspeak. But when he did come out, he told us he was bisexual at first. And that was something that, you know, that was the moment that I knew that he was gay. When he said that, because I knew that wasn't the truth, but he needed to, I think, more for his dad's sake, because his dad being a man, being someone that he, you know, didn't want to disappoint. Yeah. Right. And he didn't disappoint. And even though, you know, I think that my husband had a harder time than I did with that, just because of who I am. My best friend is gay. I love him. He was married. He has 3 grown children. He's a grandfather, and now he has a partner, and he's very happy. And he's the most wonderful person that anyone could ever ask for as a friend, because he's always there for me regardless. And there's no judgment. And that's the way we should be with everyone. He is my best friend. He was my best friend when he was married. And then when he came out, he was still my best friend, because it didn't change who he was. Yeah. And I think that that's what people need to realize. Like we've had a podcast about labels before, and labels bother me because I don't want someone to say, oh yeah, you know, my gay friend. No, he's my friend. Yes, he's gay, but he's just my friend. Just like Tina's my best girlfriend. Like, you know what I'm saying? Doesn't matter what. And I don't think it's anybody's business to be anyway. We don't flaunt being straight. Like you said, like you don't die in other countries for being straight. Yeah. Why should you die in other countries for being gay, or just being who you are and being truthful in who you are and who you get to be?
Agree. Yeah. Did you always kind of have an inkling? I'm always curious about parents too. Like, cause I don't often have these conversations with my parents, because we just don't, you know, but did you have any inklings at all about your son or no before he came out?
You know, I think something, yes, but not really, not as much. My husband had asked him several times as he was growing up. My husband always, I think, had more of the feeling, whereas I was even with my best friend. Until he told me he was gay, he wasn't. Sure. It didn't matter to me. So I think that same with my son. Until he came out to me, then he was just my son, and he wasn't straight or gay. It didn't matter. There was no label for me. So, but I couldn't be more proud of him to have the strength to be able to do that and be authentic to who he gets to be. That means the world to me, and to have the family. And I wish we could allow people to realize the special bond that you have with your child, regardless of who they are or what they choose, or, it doesn't matter.
Well, and I think sometimes what happens is parents have these expectations that are program beliefs of what it should be like. You're going to get married, you're going to go to school, get married, have kids, I'm going to have grandkids. Yeah. So I don't even think for a lot of people, it's the expectation that's just shattered now. The belief that they had of the way that their life was going to play out, like we have any control over that. If people could just check their expectations and be like, okay, so this is not the way I planned it.
That's a huge part of it, is checking the expectation. Because nothing, you can plan as much as you want, but life is going to life its own way, it always does.
We were talking about people as well. And when you had brought something up that made me remember this, but when my son did come out, I had posted something on Facebook, just a general, everyone deserves to be loved. It was just very general. Didn't tag or say anything because I don't think he was ready for that. And it wasn't my story to tell, it was his. But client that I had done I was a stylist for 35 years. And I had done her hair for over 20 years. So I knew her. I was good to her. When she was down on her luck, I still would do her hair. And she had asked a friend of mine, is somebody in Vicky's family gay? And my girlfriend was like, I don't think so. I don't know. She goes, oh, well. And she completely blocked me from all social media, all because I posted that. And you know what I thought? I was relieved, because I don't want to tell you what I think. I don't want to have that conversation with you because you're not worth it. You knew me for 20 years. And now because somebody in my family may be gay, you're not going to speak to me anymore?
Yeah, very telling. I mean, I've had a few situations too. I always call it the trash will take itself out. And I'm not calling anybody trash, but sometimes if somebody's going to disown me for that, well then we're probably both better for it. So you do you, and I will do me in peace. Thank you. Goodbye. Don't let the door hit your butt on the way out, kind of thing. So yeah.
I heard this saying before, and we said it on another podcast, but they said the secret to life is love thy neighbor like thyself. And that's the problem. People don't love themselves, so they only see negativity in others because it's a reflection of something going on. And it's like, why does what somebody does in their personal life, what does that have anything to do with you? Why do you care? And it reminds me of that book, The Subtle Art of Giving a Fuck. Like, why is it that you truly give a fuck to what somebody else is doing in their personal life? How does that impact you at all? And I almost wonder if it's because there's a little part in them that maybe has thought about it or felt shame about it. And it's like, that's the only thing that makes sense in my mind why you would care. Like, what is it bringing up in you? What fears, what doubts, what beliefs? It's not about what's going on over there. It's something in here.
That's so important to remember too, when you face any kind of negativity, that it's usually not a reflection of you. It's something else, someone else's issue with you. And it's hard to remember that, because when you get attacked, you feel like you get on the defensive too, and then it just creates this horrible thing. But unless someone is angry at me because I did or said something hurtful, and then they bring that up to me, Dan, I'm being a dick to you because you were a dick to me, and here's why. Okay, then we'll deal with it, and I'll apologize, and we'll figure it out. But if you just hate me for being and doing something that has no bearing on your life, that's a you problem, not a me problem, And it's hard to wrap our heads around that, but I think that's what it is. That there's something about themselves they don't love, so they're seeing something in you, and it's triggering something in them, and that's where the negativity is coming from. But it can be very, very hurtful. I don't fully understand it anymore. Like you hear, about repealing the gay marriage laws, and it's like, well, why? Well, why is it that far that there's people who are bringing this to the courts, who are putting repeals into? How is someone getting married? There's people getting married right now all over the world. Men, women, 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 men, men. Is it affecting our lives at all? No. So I don't understand where that's coming from. I don't know what that is. I think that's just plain old bigotry. which is still a huge problem in so many ways. But I don't understand where that side of homophobia comes, where it's we want to suppress and stomp out and make illegal. I don't know why anybody would strive where that would be a goal for anybody. I don't understand that. But here we are, 2025.
Yeah, 2025 and things are still that
That's
way.
wild.
You know, it doesn't make any sense.
And I think, you know, sometimes when we have these conversations, right, the intention is, how can we bring more humanity back to the world? How can we be more human centered? And, you know, one of the things that my mom's dealing with right now is she was common law, and my stepdad passed away. They had a house together. Her name wasn't on, but legally she doesn't own that house, even though she lived in it for 30 years. And people are like, who cares if you can't get married? Big deal. Well, there's other benefits. You know, owning property, if your name's not on the property, like the things that my mom are going through common law, there's a lot of laws that don't protect common law. So it's like, and why should, and this is the other thing, it's almost like, okay, this might go off on a real tangent, but I'm like, okay, what are we chasing? This, who says this piece of paper means so much? Like, at what point do we just stop fighting the system, stop fighting the government, and start like not relying on them to dictate what we do, what we say, what we can't, what's like, if we all stood up, like if humanity stood up against the one, you know, it's like, what ripple could we really create? And I do see that, I mean, it happens in the education system sometimes too. There's so many demands and so many expectations, and people just take it. At what point do we just like unite for humanity?
Yeah. Good question. Well, so, I mean, right now, that's such a, I could go off on a tangent now on this one. Right now, you know, social media, I love social media. I think it's very cool. It's an incredible tool, but like all tools that can do amazing things, you can use them to do amazing things, or you can use them to do amazingly awful things. And I feel like that is a driving force right now because it connects a lot of people in great ways, which is wonderful. People are finding community in ways they've never found community or were able to find community before. In a lot of ways, we're more united than ever. But also, the way we are so connected, never before, I don't think in the history of mankind on Earth, or womankind for that matter, humankind, have we ever been this connected. But I'm not sure if we've ever been this disconnected either. Like, we have an amazing exchange of information going on, free flow of information and access to information like never before. But I don't feel we are growing collectively. I don't feel we're growing as a collective, which I think speaks to your, you know, how do we bring back humanity? And I think that's partially because we have connected with other people, but we've also disconnected from a lot of reality, and we have our own reality on our computers. And we forget that there's actual life, and then there's algorithms that are dictating what we see every day and programming how we think. And like I said, I love technology, but it is like a vacation to my brain when I drop it for like a month or so. I reset. I'm like, oh, I forgot what real life was like. And I forgot how much idiocy and negativity I was normalizing by living it online every day. So I think that's not all of it, but that's a big part of it is social media, and we're connecting and disconnecting in ways we were never able to before. And I'm not sure if our noggins are ready for it yet, to be honest. The technology is moving faster than our brain cells, I think, right now, and that's something we got to figure out to calibrate. But I don't know how to do that, except I guess love yourself and the ones around you and build community in real life as much as you possibly can. But I'm not sure.
And I think like, become more conscious. Yeah. And when I talk about consciousness, it's like when we can be 100% responsible for our experience of life, our reality, our simulator. I like to see like Earth is kind of like walking around in virtual reality glasses, right? Yeah. You know, and I was sharing this story. I don't know if I was sharing it with you, but you know, I was playing VR. My friends came over and they had their VR glasses, and I'm afraid of heights. So they had me climbing Mount Everest in VR. And I was like looking down, like, I can't, like I couldn't breathe. Meanwhile, I'm safe in my living room. And this is the world that we're living in, of everything's a threat. We're living in this world of morality where everything's right or wrong, good or bad. Maybe it's not right or wrong, good or bad. It's just what's so. And we think that everything is real, but it's not. It's our own interpretation, our own experience. And so we go around like living in this simulator that's not conscious and not connected. We got to take off the virtual reality glasses, people. We got to start waking up to humanity and getting back to what is really important. Love. That's all. Like it's really about loving yourself, loving others, like loving the world, the planet.
Yeah, that's so it. You know, that's kind of what pride is all about for me anyway. I mean, I know it's in the LGBT context, but pride is also for everybody. Pride is for the parents and the friends of. It's for the people who aren't out yet, who maybe are not going to go to the pride festivals, but they're going to drive by and see the rainbow flags and see the rainbow flag at City Hall and see that, oh yeah, I forgot June is Pride Month and there is a supportive community, and that's going to help them one day. They're going to see a mother and her son and think, can you imagine if one day I ever sat down and told my mom that? I could never imagine that, but maybe now, one day, I can. Like, it plants those seeds, and really the basis is love. Like, I'm not a parent, but I can't imagine, you know, once they work up the courage to tell you who they really are. Like, can you imagine, Vicky, if your son came out to you and you said, that's great, now get out, like that? Like, I imagine that's unfathomable to you, but I mean, it happens, which is, it blows my mind that I think, you know, any parent or caregiver who could kick their child out for being themselves, I mean, you've lost the plot completely. If you're making some weird made up bias priority over your kid, but we do it every day, and I don't fully understand why we're so programmed like that. What you said, Tina, like about morality, that's a word that I've always thought, morality and normal. I've always thought those were two really interesting words, because what's the definition of either? What is normal? My normal is probably very different than my next door neighbor's normal. And morality, what is moral to me? My life is immoral to some people. What is morality? What is normal? I mean, my body temperature is normal. That I can, there's a normal there. But other than body temperature, I don't know what normal is, because it's different for every single person. And morality is the same. Somebody might live very, very differently than me. And I think, ooh, God, they do that. But that's their normal or their morality, and it's not mine. And if I don't understand it, guess what I can do? I can either learn about it, or I can mind my own damn business, because it's not affecting me. Like, you do you, whatever it is. If you like to smear yourself with peanut butter and roll around with your 5 significant others each night, as long as nobody's getting hurt and nobody's being abused, do I care? I really don't. I really don't. Why would I stop them from doing that? That's a wild example, but you know, whatever way you live, as long as no one is being hurt and we're leading with love, what's the problem? At worst case scenario, I don't get it, but you know what? I really don't care, because it doesn't concern me. So it doesn't matter.
Well, I was at a leadership seminar one time, and there was a woman who stood up to share, and she was a diehard feminist. I mean, she was all about women's rights and women. And the seminar leader said, sometimes to win the fight, you got to give up being a woman. If you want to win, like if you want to be gay, give up being gay. If you want to be a woman, give up being a woman. If you want to be, and like she went through, if you want to be black, give up being black. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, what is she saying? Like, I got to give up my identity. Well, we create sometimes this facade, this, like when we're fighting for something, right? It takes over and people don't hear the message anymore, because we're trying so hard. Like I have a view, you have a view. And like the extremists sometimes are trying to get other people to see their view. They're not, because you have a view, I have a view. But what we need to start doing is start operating from the space of you have a view, I have a view, and they're both valid. Yeah. But when we try and like force something down somebody's throat, they're not going to receive it. So that's what she meant. Like, if you want to be a woman, an empowered woman, give up the fight of like loud and proving it and trying to force people to see your view. Because when you can do it in a way that's very feminine, and I'm just like speaking to myself, you know, that is very feminine and it is very empowering, and you stand in your power without having to prove something, the message is then received. So it's like so many situations in life we can see we can fight for our rights. But when we operate from this space of like, you need to see my view, people don't. They just don't. It's not even, they can't, unless you have a high level of consciousness, most of the world cannot see somebody's view because it's so far outside of their reality, their programming, their church, their culture. So we're trying to say like, people need to have rights. Women need to have rights. Black people need to have rights. Gay people need to have rights. It's like, at what point do we just realize people aren't changing?
Yeah.
Those extremists that are like fighting everything, they're not changing their view because we cram it down their face. But all we can do is say like, hey, I see that you have a view and it's not the same as mine. That's cool. Can we coexist with different views? As soon as we stop fighting, people start listening.
That's the key. The question, can we coexist? And hopefully it would be yes, right? Hopefully. Like that's the hope. That would be yes, we can coexist. Yeah. As long as.
Imagine the day where we could all really coexist and just love each other and not have these internal biases. Yeah. When a Black person walks into the room, you're like, oh, is he going to hurt me? People are they don't think, they're like, no, I'm not biased. I'm like, bullshit. You're lying to yourself. We have been so programmed all over the place to be threatened by other humans. We got to break the programming. And this is, our podcast is about the art of being unstoppable. As a human race, how do we become unstoppable? How do we all win? How do we all live our best lives? Only with unity, only when we all come together. And I don't want to say rise against the resistance. No, but like really just come together as a human body, as a human, love, humanity.
Yeah, love.
See each other, see the good in people, see the love in another. And it starts here. We got to see the love in ourselves, and then it's easy to see the love in others.
That's true. Well, I'm going to have to make reference to RuPaul's Drag Race, which changed a lot of things, but he ends every show by saying, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love anybody else? And that is something that's very, very important, especially for everybody. But, I think also, people in the LGBT community are often taught not to love themselves. Like when I was growing up, in the 80s, it was a really interesting time for me because in the 80s and early 90s, when I was, a child and then a teenager, when I was really starting to figure things out, late 80s, early 90s was the height of the AIDS crisis. So your fate was more or less, especially if you were a gay man, you're probably going to die of AIDS. That's what the mindset was back then. So as somebody who was like hitting puberty at that time and realized, I was like, oh boy, that's my fate. And, the only role models, we turn on TV now, and there are so many. I'll speak to gay men because that was who I was looking for, who I didn't see. There were so many gay role models on TV now who are very confident, who are strong. There are athletes. There are sassy designers who are oozing confidence. And that didn't exist. When I was a kid, when I was like 13, it was Charles and Rick on the Phil Donahue show, openly gay. And they either had AIDS, their family was disowning them. People were saying, which one is the woman? It was just kind of an awful thing where they sat up there getting crucified on talk shows. And that was really it until we started seeing more, positive role models. And I'll be honest, and this is a little gayism that no gay men talk about. Gay men of a certain age, right around my age, I know it's a cliche, but who were fans of Madonna, and I'm a massive fan of Madonna. She was one of the first mainstream celebrities in her show, Truth or Dare. It was a movie kind of documentary show of behind the scenes of her tour. It was the first time that gay men of my age who were just on the cusp of kids, but becoming teenagers, who followed Madonna when she was geared to us kids in her early poppy stage. We grew up with her. When we hit puberty, she released that documentary, and she was the first mainstream celebrity that I ever saw celebrate gay men. She celebrated them. There was a scene where I dare you two to make out, and her two dancers who were very good looking, very athletic, very confident, made out. And I bet you could hear a collective sigh around the world of every little gay boy who saw that kiss happen, because we were like, it was the first time on Madonna was the biggest star in the world. She was the Taylor Swift back then. It was the first time that we saw gay men proudly celebrating each other in a way that wasn't looked at as porn or being X-rated or taboo. It was just guys having fun and celebrating who they are, and they were confident and good looking. And like that for me, that was a changing moment for me. It really was. And when I talk to other guys my age who are in that same age bracket, if you talk about the Truth or Dare kiss, every guy was like, oh, that was the first time. That was the one.
I remember that. And I remember, did that really just happen? It shocked me because you never saw that, never.
Not like you see it all the time now, but there was no Brokeback Mountain. There were no reality TV. There was no Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. There was no RuPaul's Drag Race. That was all underground. That was hidden. That was taboo. That was after hours. Then out comes Madonna, biggest star in the world, and all her dancers are just flamboyantly fabulous, outright, no hiding whatsoever. And that was a moment that helped a lot of us, I think, see something in them that we saw in ourselves. We're like, wow, I can be gay and I can also be fabulous. Like I can be strong and I can be confident and I can have fun and I can have friends. And that was a first for us. And that to me was my first lesson in visibility. Like, because before it was, this is basically a death sentence, gay. So I'm not going to tell anybody. I'll be disowned. And if I do get in a relationship, I'll probably get AIDS and die. Like it's terrible to think that way. But growing up that way with that in your head, and that was so strong. I mean, millions and millions of gay men were dying at that time. So it was like that. We're still, I think, reverberating from a lot of that. There's a whole generation of gay men who are gone. Like, and now, I don't know if you hear about this. I don't want to go too, but since we're talking pride, there's a whole thing about like daddies and like, oh, he's that didn't exist for a while, because all those up and coming guys who were going to be the older middle-aged gay men who were out, most of them lost their lives. A lot of them lost their lives. A good percentage of them lost their lives. And it set gay people way back into the closet, afraid to have relationships with each other, thought everybody was diseased. It turned us against each other. That's a fracture that I think the gay community still feels to this day. We're getting better at it now. I think we're healing now, but that was so huge because you were basically taught, well, I still can't give blood. I still cannot give blood. Now, they said they changed that recently to say gay men can give blood now. They have, but not if you've had relationship with another man. So if you are in a relationship and you're sexually active, you can't give blood if you're a gay man. That's something they still have to check, because you probably have AIDS, is what the logic of that is. And believe it or not, that is still a thing in 2025. Ontario, in Canada, they eased up a little bit. Oh, it is still a thing. Organ donation, I mean, I can register to be a donor, but will they take my tissue? That's another question. It's very, very iffy. And I have a friend who lost her son, and he wanted to be a donor. This is not long ago. He was gay. And they said, no thanks, we don't want his organs and tissue because he's gay. And so that right there, AIDS is not a gay disease. We know that now. It was most predominantly, it disproportionately affected gay men because it started in that community and all that. But we're still feeling that to this day, discrimination. So I know it's so important to give blood. Like I'm not like, no one give blood in protest. We have to give blood to save lives. I wish I could give blood. I would sign me up, but I can't right now. I can't because I'm not because I might have AIDS. That's essentially why, which is so silly. You would think they would screen all blood for that. You would hope, not just go by my word, but so exactly. I don't understand. I never understood that, but that's a whole thing. And they did recently change it a couple of years ago. They made it more lax, but I know my situation that I'm in, I still cannot give blood to this day because I'm gay.
Wow. I had no idea.
It shocked
me either. That's horrible. That's horrible.
They changed it quite a bit. I still can't. So it's wild. It's shocking when you see that. So again, going back to your first question, that's why we still have Pride. That's why we still have Pride Day, because that's in our country. That's why you need acknowledgement. I've been with my partner 25 years. We still do not hold hands walking down the street in Windsor, Ontario, because I don't want a bottle chucked at my head. I don't know. Will that happen? I don't know. That might be my own irrational thing. But people would say something. Somebody would yell something out, and we just don't want to deal with that. When we're in Toronto, in the Village, we do hold hands. So it's not that we're not the couple who we just don't hold hands. We do. We only do it when we know it's going to be safe. And what's different about Toronto? In the Village, in Toronto, at Church and Wellesley, there's pride flags on every corner. Every single business has pride flags. There's gay and LGBT people all over the place. So we know we're safe. Nobody is going to scoff at us holding hands because we have an army around us who will jump up if anything happens. And I can't say the same here. And I'm not asking for pride flags on every street corner or every single business to put a rainbow flag up. But that's the reality is I feel safe in Toronto. I don't feel safe in Windsor. I don't feel safe doing it in Detroit and a lot of different neighborhoods unless I know for certain that I'm safe. I don't know that for certain. I don't know in Bell River that I would be safe to do that. Maybe I would. I see people doing it, but maybe I wouldn't. And to me, I just don't want to take that risk. So I don't know if that's trauma that I haven't dealt with, but I don't know. I don't think it's unrealistic to think somebody would call me the 3-letter F word if they saw me and my partner holding hands. And I'm just like, I'm too tired to deal with that. So we just don't, which, you know what I mean? It's fine. We're used to it, but
And
yeah,
that's sad.
that's how it is.
That's a sad thing that the world is like that still in 2025. This is just horrible to me. And, I'm glad that you're speaking about this because I think people need to be aware. They need to wake up. They need to realize that why is that okay? Why is that okay? Right?
And even more,
it's not
more
okay.
to that too. Anybody who is for whatever reason against it, they need to ask themselves, why do I think that isn't okay? Why do I think that 2 guys or 2 girls isn't okay? What is it in me that's bothering? Like, what is this bothering in me? Because that's going to answer, if they're honest with themselves, that's going to tell them a lot about themselves. If they see 2 guys and their first instinct is throw a bottle or to call them the F word or hurt them or punch them, they need to pause and say, why am I feeling like that right now? Why do I want to call those 2 guys the F word? Why do I want to throw something at them or say something or yell something or egg them? That's on them. I always say homophobia. Yeah, you're making it a me problem, but that's a homophobe problem. That's you have a problem with it. So you got to figure out what that is. And maybe when you really think about it, it'll hit you and you say, hey, why do those guys bother me? It really isn't affecting me at all. So why do I care? And then you follow that and you'll learn something about yourself, I think, of why that strikes an insecurity. And it might just be programming. It might just be that you were told all your life that that's wrong. And you're like, oh my God, you know what? That's so stupid because it really doesn't affect me at all. So, I'm just not going to care. If you're against gay marriage, well, great news. You don't have to get gay married, but you can let other people do it.
Well, my friend says, we went into a bar one time and he's like, Tina, by the end of the night, I could probably leave with any one of these men. I'm like, but they're not gay. He's like, it doesn't matter because after they've had drinks, they're all gay. I'm like, stop it. He's like, no, seriously. He's like, this is the problem. He's like, they hate us because there's a part of them that's curious. I'm like, well, that would make total sense, but I was just dying. He's like, see them all check me out. I'm like, well, you're pretty hot. He's like, but honestly, we could just go off and off and off about the fishing trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I know we've been on here for a while and Dan, I want to leave with your view on this. What can, I want to say educators and parents do, not just parents of kids that are coming out but what can we do to really educate our kids? What can we say? How do we spread love instead of hate? Because I know sometimes people are just afraid of talking about it. And I know in education, it's there's content and training and stuff like that they're trying to bring awareness. But if you could just give them one thing that they could say that would make a difference, what do you think that would be? I
would just say above everything is just lead with kindness and understanding, because everyone comes from different walks of life, different cultures. So lead with kindness and understanding. And when someone isn't leading with kindness, you got to call that out. You have to call that out, whether, hey, listen, it works every single way. If you're making fun of somebody's religion, you have to call that up. If you're not religious, you're atheist, whatever, you're calling out you're making fun of someone's religion, you call that out and say it's not nice to call people out for their religion. If somebody is making fun of a gay person and using the religious as a basis for it, you have to call that person out and say, hey, you can't use your religion as a weapon either. We have to be kind to each other. We're different, but we have to be nice. If we can't be nice, we've lost the plot. So I would say above everything, that's the golden rule, is lead with kindness and call it out when you see somebody who is leading with something that is not kind to another human being. And I don't think you can go wrong then. I don't think we can agree to disagree, and that's fine. Maybe I won't even talk to you, but that's fine. And sometimes that's the kindest thing to do, is just to say, maybe it's best we don't discuss certain things. And that's a great way to live in peace. But when it comes to hurting people, we have to call people out. We have to call it out and say, regardless of your beliefs, you can't hurt other people. You can't be unkind to other people. It's not kind to belittle or think of someone as less than. There's a really great phrase that I'd love to end with. Until we are equal, we have to be greater than. We have to rise up. When they go low, we go high. That's what we have to do until we are all on the same playing field. And who knows when we're going to get there. But I think if we lead with kindness and we try to focus that with how we act and interact with people, it's a start, if nothing else.
That reminds me of people that have a superiority complex really are feeling inferior. That's why they need to feel superior. So Dan, thank you so much for being here with us and the candid conversation and sharing your life and your stories and your experiences. It's just been such a valuable conversation. And I hope that the listeners will take something away and bring it back to their families, bring it back to their communities, and just be kind, share the love.
Thank you for having me. It's been so much fun.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye-bye.
Dan. Bye, everyone. Bye, everybody. See you back next time.
Have a beautiful day. Well, friends, that is the end of our episode today. If you love this episode, hit the subscribe button so you never miss another episode. And please share us with your friends and tag us on your socials at The Art of Being Unstoppable. So for today, have yourself a beautiful day and let's be unstoppable together. See you next time.